Welcome back to Business Inspirations. I'm Coach Cynthia, and we're still with Tom Aaker from Standard Chartered Bank, and we're still talking about leadership and thinking global, but hiring local, right? So we talked about this whole concept of, oh, he's a boule, and having that fear factor and everything like that. But what you're mentioning is it takes a while, and it takes that personal approach to break the ice. Yeah, and what else do you do when you first come into a country that you think empowers the local people?
I think one of my first steps in Zambia, in Qatar, here in Indonesia, was to try and take advice and take counsel from the Indonesians who know this market already. And my top management team, I have 5 very talented senior executives that are all Indonesians. And I turn to them frequently for advice, for counsel, for ideas, and from the very beginning, I've tried to use them as my advisors, and I think that's been well received. And then they're very eager to share these ideas with me and with the other expats in the management team.
So, what's the approach, or what's the system that you put in place that that gets your team to start running without you?
Well, one of the things I try to do every day is to spend some time with every member of my top management team, face to face.
That's your daily rituals?
One-on-one, yeah.
Okay.
And I don't always accomplish it, but most days I think I spend 5 or 10 minutes or a half an hour one-on-one with every single member of this top team of 10 managers. And on a good day, the second level down of management, I'll roam around the bank and find a chance to talk with quite a few senior managers and just see what's on their mind. And usually the way I'll start the conversation is to ask them to tell me about their business or their function and how can I help you. And that's always an easy conversation when I'm offering to give them some assistance rather than challenging them or accusing them or anything negative. But I know you're doing a great job. How can I help you do an even better job? And it's amazing how quickly people open up. And if it's a consistent sort of behavior day after day, then that conversation continues from today to tomorrow to the next day. And they don't think it's the last time the CEO's ever coming through, but he'll be by again tomorrow or the next day. Or conversely, I think it makes them feel very comfortable approaching me at my office anytime during the day.
Right.
And my door is always open, and I think my office is one that people are comfortable to come and tell me what's going on. And I think for any effective leader, you have to have a feeling of the organizational issues and what's really happening. And sometimes if the leader is too intimidating, the bad news never gets there. It's only the good news. And then you don't know what you don't know, and things can happen, and then you're caught unprepared as the leader. So I want to have a culture where people are not afraid to approach and tell me what's going on. And then that dialogue just becomes more and more active. But I think it's important I'm doing that with a whole bunch of many people and different points of info. But I tend to start with the Indonesians because they know more often the real story, because they know the culture, the traditions, the language, and that's a big advantage.
And when things don't go right?
Then we deal with it. And I think the culture in the group is not one of accusation and penalties and guilt and all of that. It's much more constructive and positive, where there's an issue and we gather up the people that need to discuss it and try and be very rational and constructive about it and try and find a better way. And certainly in banking there's challenges that we face, but I think with good people that are all trying to achieve the same end game, you can usually come to a solution pretty constructively. It's
that belief. I mean, there's that belief that's running through your head, I think, of innocent till proven guilty rather than guilty till proven innocent.
Absolutely,
yeah?
Absolutely. And that's less threatening, and so I think people are more willing to be honest. And knowledge is power. And if you're getting the true story and you're getting the full story, then you can make the right decisions. And I think that's enabled me and the rest of my managers to do a better job running the bank than it would have otherwise been.
Do you believe in punishment? You know, there's rewards and punishment. You're talking a lot on rewards, incentives.
Sure.
What kinds of punishment do you believe?
I think in certain instances, and one of the examples where we have a zero tolerance policy is dishonest behavior. And when it comes to frauds or submitting fraudulent forged documents, anything like that, we do not have any threshold. And I think my colleagues know that in that type of instance, then my my style becomes a lot tougher because there's no room for that.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer that it takes 148 years in our case to build a good reputation, but you can lose that in one moment if you do something dishonest, and we just won't abide it in any of our staff. And so when we have had instances, and occasionally you do have people that break the rules and try and take advantage, then we follow a proper process, but oftentimes there's no gray area there.
Yeah.
Dishonest is unacceptable, and I'm very serious when it comes to that type of breaking the rules.
But it's a punishment that is all or nothing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And what about punishments like what you said, penalization, or when you don't achieve something, there's a deduction of something else? Mm-hmm. Those kinds of punishments. That is
Sure.
not also. Do you believe in that?
Well, I wouldn't call it punishment. I would say it's perhaps withholding the reward. And I'm much more a manager that would lead with a carrot rather than a stick. And if someone does perform at a high level, and that is our performance culture, they're rewarded with promotions, with financial reward, with many different types of reward and recognition. If somebody doesn't perform, they don't get that stuff. And I think that's enough of a motivation that someone is either going to change the way they perform and try harder, work smarter, or they'll go work someplace else. But I'm not a believer in punishment for the sake of, changing behaviors, unless it's dishonest conduct. I think that's
Sure.
the one exception.
Sure.
I'd much rather encourage the right behaviors and reward the right behaviors than dwell too much on the wrong behaviors when it comes to a performance management. We can deal with that through natural attrition, and I think people get the message pretty quickly.
I see. Well, very insightful for this segment. And when we come back, more to come on developing people, and maybe a message for the local people, how to develop themselves to take leadership roles. When we come back with Tom Aaker from Standard Chartered Bank.